places that normally are getting rain at this time of the year are not getting rain at this time of the year are getting tons of it. So hopefully we'll get some soon. Mercy Run tonight, 6 o'clock. Men's group meeting, and I have a note in the bulletin, won't be held this Wednesday because of the picnic and white elephant sale over at Tom and Audine's home. So 6 o'clock at Tom and Audine's for the white elephant sale and picnic. And reminder there, that's for anybody who wants to come. It's a United Methodist. Our girls sponsored this event, put it all together, but everybody is welcome to come. Just bring a covered dish, and if you want to have something for the white elephant sale, everything that's sold is used to help people out. And so whatever you give or bring to the sale is a big help. Reaching Out Food Ministry this Saturday at 9 to 10:30. And we have not had this announcement in the bulletin yet, but there will be a community. You remember we had the worship in the park over the last several summers. That will not be held this year. In lieu of that, there will be a special service at the Midwest Auditorium, and that will be on Sunday the 28th. So Sunday evening, the 28th at 6:30. It is in your bulletin insert. And you'll notice also at the bottom of this insert are some needs that Mission Central has put out to help the flood victims in Kentucky. So if you're able to provide some of the things that are, just a few things that are listed, some household cleaners, reusable wipes, and some things like that. Other stuff that's needed, they have, but they still need, they're coming up short with some of these items. So if you're able to provide them, bring them into the church, we'll see to it that Mission Central gets them. So in addition to those kinds of things, we have a lot of anniversaries and birthdays being celebrated this week. Remember Richard and Cheryl Walmer? They remember you. Of course, they're in South Carolina, so they can't be here for worship, but they often call, and I know Norma stays in touch with them, and they miss being with you folks. So their anniversary is this week. Carla Lynn Paster's anniversary is this week. Tony and Kathy Doberman, who I almost ran down in the parking lot. No, not really. It was an opportunity, but I didn't take it, did I? Just kidding. Happy anniversary to you guys. And Scott and Jennifer Henderson are celebrating their anniversary as well. Birthdays, Joel, happy birthday. Today is Joel's birthday. Cassidy Wrestler and Lara, put your hand up. Okay. Lara's having a birthday. Barbara's having a birthday this week. Over the hill now. Kylie Hassan Clark and Quinn Smith are celebrating birthdays too. So happy birthday to all of you. And certainly happy anniversary again with the Valley. Any other announcements? Anything else has to be there?
Carvel.
Yes.
Next Sunday we're going to have a special time during the service for backpack blessings, and that doesn't just necessarily need to be a backpack for those of you going back to school. If you're going to tech, it could be your tech uniform or a work belt. If you are an employee and you want to bring your uniform or a tote bag, kids going to preschool, nap mats, it's just going to be a time, I think the service may be a little more geared for back to school, to just pray blessings over our students and teachers who will be heading back to school. So I encourage you to invite young folks that you may know that are heading back to school to come bring their backpacks, and we'll have Carver will do a blessing over those backpacks.
Okay. So back to school blessing, essentially, for next Sunday. And then the following Sunday will be promotion Sunday for children in our Sunday school program. So thank you for that, Deb. Anyone else?
We still have community aid cards. Nobody has contacted me in regard to those. So anyone who might know someone in need or could use those, they're available.
Okay. Is our number 30018?
I do not
put out reminders for people going to community aid, and taking items there that they can just give the number for Hummel's, and then Hummel's actually gets, credit, so to speak, for what you take and leave there. But if you need any, of that information from, Leah, she has it. And is that a card they can put like in their wallet or
Yep,
whatever?
it's a $20 card they can use when they go
Okay.
shopping.
Oh, the gift, like the gift card.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So, do we have a fair number of those? Okay, so we have a fair number of gift cards for community aid that you can just use and go and use that rather than your own money. So see Leah, or if you know of someone who could use help that way, please see Leah. Thank you.
Tuesday night meeting.
Oh, yes, thank you for that. Tuesday evening, we're having a church meeting here. This is in regard, of course, we're running toward the end of our 40 days of prayer and discernment. And so Tuesday night at, I believe we're doing that at 7 o'clock? Does that sound right? Okay. Roger, Mark, I think we talked for Tuesday evening. Okay. So anyone interested in coming to a church meeting that would be dealing with our place in the United Methodist Church? It's just an informational meeting. It is not a vote. There won't be a vote taken. But it's going to be information that you need to have in order to make a vote, in order to vote. So the more information you have about the things that are going on and what the process looks like, we're going to have at least one and possibly two folks from other churches who have gone through the disaffiliation process, leaving the United Methodist Church. And they will talk to us about how that works for them. So I urge you, if it's at all possible, to be here yourself. If you can't, and you can send somebody else in your family or whatever, or let somebody else in the congregation know that you'd like to have some of the information from them because you can't get to the meeting. But we're thinking the more information you have, the better opportunity we have to make a wise choice when the time comes. But there's no better resource than you're spending time in prayer and reading the scriptures, asking God what God would have us do as a congregation. And so all these things together, we hope, are going to help us do God's will, because that's the most important thing when it's all said and done. So Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. Anyone else?
I was going to say, as such, we will not have youth that day.
Right. Normally there would be youth that night. We did this based on, not because Tuesday nights it seemed like a nice night to have it. We did it based on the fact that when the folks who were going to come and share could be here. So, no youth on Tuesday evening.
I would encourage them, their families to come out anyway, because many of them have joined the church, and as such, they actually vote.
Yeah.
So they should be informed as well, and they are our future, so they
Yes,
should be involved.
absolutely. So, as Scott said, you should encourage the youth to come and your family to be here, because every single member, and when I've talked about becoming a member of Hummel's United Methodist Church in the past, and most of you are, but not every single person that attends Hummel's is an actual member. But it's very important because members only will have a say in which direction the church goes. So hopefully, if that membership isn't something, and that's not, it's not the only reason for becoming a member, so we should have it. Being a member is so much more than that. Becoming a part of the community here, a faith community here, is the most important part, and because we become all together then worshipers of God. But if you haven't become a member, and that's something you want to become, so you do have a vote and
while to Exodus chapter 17. We're going to be at 3 different places today. First is Exodus 17. We'll be in Matthew and John. Try not to spend more than an hour or so at each spot. I'm not sure how I ended up here on Youth Sunday. It may be because I have never grown up myself, but I'll let you determine that. All 3 of the stories that we're going to be looking at today are all miraculous acts that you probably didn't even need to be paying attention in Sunday school to hear all of these stories. I didn't do it on purpose because it was Youth Sunday. Carvel said I didn't need a message title, but this was the easiest one to come up with. I just titled it In the Middle. In the middle of what? We're always in the middle of something. Right now, we're in the middle of a drought. Lots of us are in the middle of failing health. The youth is in the middle of where they're trying to figure out where they're going to where they want to go. It's a challenging spot in life, and we're always just, I would say, in the middle of life. Job transitions, what the church could be coming up against here with looking at a disaffiliation. We're towards the end of our 40 days of prayer, but at some point we're going to be in the middle of something. So I'm hoping by combining these 3 stories, we can have a better grasp on what to do when we're in the middle of anything. Starting on chapter 17 of Exodus, all the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of Sin by stages, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped at Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people grumbled against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." And the Lord said to Moses, "Pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb. And you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people will drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. A little back history to chapter 17. The people of Israel have been enslaved now for hundreds of years in Egypt. The time of deliverance had finally come, and as I'm sure almost everyone knows, God sent Moses to lead them out of Egypt. This is not the first camp they had moved to. They went from wilderness to wilderness, and every time they were challenged by something. The very first move, they were challenged by the Red Sea. As everyone knows what happened, they got to the Red Sea. The Egyptian army was closing the gap, and God parted the Red Sea. They walked across, and as the Egyptians got in there, he closed it up. He led them to the next camp where there was no water to drink. It was too bitter to drink. So Moses threw a log in the water. The bitter water became sweet. They moved to the next camp. He rained bread down from heaven for them to eat. Every time they moved, they grumbled. They're now at Rephidim, and Moses fears for his life that they're going to stone him because they're grumbling against Moses, he said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" It seems to me, how could you get to that camp after you've been to several others before? There's no water here now, but the time that went past from when they watched the miracle of the Red Sea parting is a whole 6 weeks apart. Just 6 weeks earlier, I can't imagine seeing that and moving on and not trusting God every time they seen it, time after time. He met their needs with water. We're probably wondering, how in the world can you see all that? You see God meet your needs with water at every time. Moses led by God's direction to where they would go next. Because they were humans. We are humans. How many times have we been called to do something? We obey God's commandment, we get there, and we feel like He led us to a place with no water. This year especially, and 2 years ago, the no water part is very easy for me to see. And just several weeks ago, we got some rain. God met that need. Then a couple days later, you're back to, oh boy, it's dry again. Did God forget about me? Does He care? And then, sure enough, it rains again. Everything health-wise, weather-related, everything in our life, it's so easy to grumble and complain against God, just as these people did. It's a lot easier to grumble and complain and think God deserted us and not look just, okay, last week He met that need when I needed it. The week before that, He met that need when I needed it. We've seen how many miracles. We have some friends right now. We had prayer for him here last week that they discovered a brain tumor. They could not operate on it fully. You have that going through your head, and it's like, I've seen so many health miracles just in the past year with farming accidents to close friends that the emergency personnel said they never seen someone so tore up and conscious when they arrived at the hospital, let alone alive. From his waist up to his head, his neck was broken, several spots, and it's 110 days since that accident, and he is now home walking. I had another friend wreck a truck that when we seen the picture of it, you couldn't tell parts of the truck from other parts of the truck, and his cell phone got smashed, and he had some broken ribs and a concussion. So when we come across a health scare, it's so easy to look at the worst right away and grumble to God, why did this come about? Are you going to forget me now? You led me here. It's so easy to look at the worst and not remember, just look back a couple months ago, a couple weeks, all the blessings that God has met. Look at verse 6. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people will drink. That rock is Jesus Christ. It's a spiritual rock. Them people could go up to that rock, and after Moses struck it, water came from it, and they drank. It did not become a spring that they could go back to and constantly get water from and relieve their water problem for good. Isn't that kind of how everything in life is. This week I was pumping fuel and a member came from the doctor's office and said I had a great 6-month checkup. Everything's good. It's 6 months. You feel great right now. Our crops get rain today. It's good for a couple days. God doesn't supply that physical water source, that health screening for life. We need to keep going back to that spiritual rock, that Jesus Christ. He is the spiritual rock, and living water is what we drink of there, and it's a type of water that you'll never thirst again for. Theodore Roosevelt said, "A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor." And John Piper puts it this way: "We may not understand all the reasons why God chooses a waterless encampment for us, but story after story in the Bible is God's roar from heaven. Trust me, trust me." That's the only thing we can do. We can't control the weather. We can't control our health. There's a lot of stuff we can control, but most of it is out of our control. And all we need to do is remember that roar from heaven, God saying, "Trust me, trust me." We're going to be coming up against possibly a disaffiliation. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what the outcome's going to be like. We just need to go back daily to Jesus Christ, the spiritual rock, and trust him. He'll lead us to wherever he wants us to go if we just trust him. Now we're going to look at Matthew 14, 22 through 34. Here's probably one of the most common stories we heard all through our Sunday school days. Starting on verse 22, immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but by this time was a long way from the land. Beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them, and in the fourth watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, and said, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." If we look back just at the beginning of chapter 14, we're not going to look there long. Jesus had just got the news of John the Baptist being beheaded. As we know, John the Baptist was doing nothing more than out preaching of Jesus Christ, and pure hatred got him beheaded. Jesus just found that out. He was down in the dumps from this. He withdrew himself from a crowd. He wanted to go to a desolate place by himself, but the crowds heard it and followed him. The disciples are going to send them away to leave Jesus be alone. Jesus said they need not go away. Give them something to eat. Here's another story we heard several times in our life. They said, we have only 5 loaves here and 2 fish. As we know, Jesus fed the 5,000 with that only 5 loaves and 2 fish. Just after that, when Jesus dismissed the crowd, that's where we got to what we just read. Jesus went up by himself, and the disciples are out on the boat. What first comes to your mind when you hear that story of Peter stepping out of the boat and sinking? Probably Peter's little faith. Yes, Peter had little faith. What about the others on the boat that didn't step out of it? Peter had enough faith to step out of the boat. Peter said, Lord, if it is you, command me to come. If we ask Jesus, if it is you, Lord, command me to come, do you know what he's going to say? Come. What we've seen with Peter, he stepped out of the boat. He was just fine walking on the water. Sometimes Peter could have just stepped out of the boat and stood beside it, have a little comfort. I told Jesus, if you want to use me, use me. He said, come. I had no intent in my life to ever be standing behind this pulpit. I have a lot of respect for preachers, evangelists that can pace around and leave, and fear doesn't get them. If this is my boat, Jesus is over there and said, come. Peter could have stepped right here. I just stepped out of my boat, but the fear's not too bad here. I can still grab the boat. Jesus said, come. I come over here. It gets a little more uncomfortable. I have to focus. Jesus is over there. Come. I go over here. Where's the worst part? In the middle. I'm not quite to Jesus yet. I'm away from my boat. Jesus said, come. I keep moving over here. The closer I get to Jesus, this door's here now. If I'm too uncomfortable, I can't make it back to the boat, I can run out that door and leave, or I can stand beside Jesus. When I come back into the middle, I'm a little fearful. I'm fearful of being away from the boat. My focus is now off Jesus. I'm going down. The other week, the drought kind of got to me. I'm grouchy. I'm in a bad mood. We heard results from our friend that they can't really operate on it. They're waiting on test results. I took my focus off Jesus and I started to sink. The beautiful part, all I need to do is say, Lord, save me. When I'm walking towards him, when I'm beside him, every time, no matter what I do, no matter how bad it is, he reaches down and pulls me up every single time. All we need to do is keep our focus on Jesus. It don't matter where we're at in life. You know, Peter's little doubt changed that whole boat from doubting. The ones on the boat said, truly, you are the Son of God. Peter heard that voice. His little doubt turned into huge doubt. took away his huge doubt. He no longer doubts. He now knows my focus is on Jesus, and when I head straight to him, he got me. When the human nature comes, I ask, he pulls me up. Now, the other disciples, their doubt's gone too. No matter where we're at in life, as individuals, as a church, moving on, looking ahead what is happening, first, we go back to that spiritual rock, Jesus Christ. Now, with Matthew, we step out of our boat. If Jesus says come, it may not be comfortable to leave the boat. We step out, keep our focus on him, and when you know you're sinking, cry out for help. As a church, as an individual, Jesus will pull us up. Now we'll go to John 21. Start on verse 3. This is after the resurrection. Jesus Christ was crucified and resurrected at this point. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. They said to him, we will go with you. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? They answered him, no. He said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. These guys, it just sounds like when you read that, you think they're just back to doing their old occupation, fishing, which they were doing. But Matthew 28 tells us, and some think this is the reason why there was only 7 of them here. Jesus told them to wait at a mountain for him. And what it looks like is Peter got a little impatient. Jesus had called these men to be fishers of men. Jesus said, come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As Jesus showed these guys, once you drop your net and follow him, there is no turning back. It looks like Peter got a little bit anxious, awaiting where Jesus told him to, and said, I'm going fishing. The others said, we will go with you. With Jesus not being around, they didn't fully trust that he would meet their needs. Jesus told them to be fishers of men. They didn't feel adequate for the ministry without Jesus by their side. They seen all the miracles that Jesus performed. They were with him for 3 years, and now with Jesus not being there, they turned back to their profession of being professional fishermen. These guys knew all the hot spots. They knew exactly where to drop their nets to be successful fishermen. However, Jesus rerouted all the fish away from their net the whole entire night. When they were coming back in, I'm sure they were in bad moods, knowing we're the top fishermen, we're doing this for a living now since Jesus is gone. Every trick in the book they threw at these fish and didn't have nothing. I'm sure they were in horrible moods. Brenda probably knows what that's like when Bruce comes back with all the new lures and no fish. Professional, top notch. So they're coming back in, and it's obvious, it's apparent, Jesus' appearance is not recognizable since the resurrection. So they don't recognize him. And can you hear him? Jesus says, hey boys, no fish, right? Nope, none. I'm sure they were, what does it look like? I can just imagine the anger these guys had after being out there all night. No fish. They don't recognize Jesus at this point. So they're back into the shore. It's a morning. They know that's why they head back in then. They know they're not, the best fishing's done and they caught nothing. There's no chance these guys are catching fish. So this guy that they don't really recognize says, cast the net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. This is like going bass fishing at the Susquehanna, coming home with nothing, and some guy is standing above a mud puddle and tells you, you didn't catch fish where you think you know how to, throw it in that mud puddle and you're going to get a silver tuna. So there must have been some authority in Jesus' voice. It doesn't say that they argued with him. They cast the net on the right side of the boat. And sure enough, Jesus directed a whole big school right into the net that they were not able to haul into the boat and had to drag it back to the shore. What does that story tell us? These guys thought they were doing what they knew how to do best, and they were not doing what Jesus told them to do. They were not being fishers of men. They were being fishermen. What does that look like for us as individuals, as a church? If you disobey exactly what God is telling you to do, He can very easily direct every blessing that was coming your way right past your net. It shows us our way does not work. It shows us if we're obedient to what Jesus tells us to do, even when there's no way this is going to work. Financially, this is crazy. It does not pencil out one bit. We need to have enough faith and trust in Jesus. Even when we cannot see Him, we can recognize Him, unlike these guys right at first. And as moving on with this, what is coming ahead with the church, if we put all three of these illustrations together, what does that look like for us? We need to come to the rock, the spiritual rock where we will thirst no more. First, we trust. God never left us down before. He's not going to lead us into, obviously he may lead us into a camp that there is no water. Why? So we trust Him. He didn't leave us down before. He's going to provide the water we need when we need it. Next, focus. We trust, then we focus. Eyes on Jesus, straight ahead. If we fall, call His name and He will pull you up. Third, and I'm closing with this, obey. Obey what Jesus calls us to do. It may not be comfortable at all. It may not be what we think is going to work. If we obey, trust, focus, and obey everything that Jesus has coming our way, He may just have that huge catch on the right side of the boat that we did not expect. After we do all of that, I honestly feel as a church we're going to get to see God's work in ways that we never have before. I'm hoping every one of us can just trust, focus, and obey, and we're going to get to see a big catch with blessings that our nets cannot hold. And that holds true in every aspect of our life. If we stay obedient to God, He will bless us beyond measure. And really, when it seems like we're not being blessed, if we just take a little step back, probably just a couple days ago, you can find blessing after blessing that you take for granted and overlook. And finally, we're all called to be fishers of men. It doesn't mean, like these guys, you quit your job and go be full-time fishers of men, but every one of us can be fishers of men at every stage, every place, to every person that we come in contact with. That is all I have.